little drawn out.
Was it?
Yeah.
When does that meeting happen?
Usually it's supposed to be for like, I think the 23rd, but it was canceled.
So it's like third Thursday?
Something like
of the
that.
Month.
Actually, I had the whole schedule here, but
No
yeah,
worries, I was just curious.
come see me down in action.
What?
Come see me in
Yeah,
action.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm, of course, really interested in that.
Yeah.
Super.
The April 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Mount Pleasant Planning Commission is now called to order. Ms. Pavlidayko, will you take roll call?
Commissioner Devaney,
Here.
Commissioner Friedrich,
Here.
Commissioner Havels,
Here.
Commissioner Irwin,
Here.
Commissioner Kingsworthy,
Here.
Commissioner Leash,
Here.
Commissioner Ordman,
Here.
Commissioner Farley. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. At this time, I'd like to make a motion if we could make an adjustment to the agenda to move our public comment section to after our new business presentation of the master plan.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion passes. And,
Favor? I take a vote.
oh, did you take a vote?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Devaney,
Aye.
Friedrich,
Aye.
Havels,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Kingsworthy,
Aye.
Leash,
Aye.
Ordman,
aye.
Farley.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes of the March 6, 2025 Planning Commission meeting.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is the Zoning Board of Appeals report.
Madam Chair, we did not meet.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the communications.
We did not receive any communications.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item on our agenda is the public hearing for SUP 2504. It's a special use permit for short-term rentals. Ms. Pavlidayko, will you please introduce this?
Yes. So the first case that we have for today is the applicant owner, Bobby Jane Brown, is seeking approval for a short-term rental located at 302 South Elizabeth. The property has currently 2 dwellings, 1 principal dwelling. The address for that is 302 South Elizabeth. And then she also has an accessory dwelling unit on the same parcel, with the address being 904 East Illinois Street. So the applicant is seeking a short-term rental solely for the principal residence, for her mother to continue to live in the accessory dwelling unit. So the plan would be to rent the house, the principal house, through Airbnb to visitors to the Mount Pleasant area. And then she also indicated that she'll be using a screening tool for guests and that her mother will keep monitoring the guests. So I did amend the staff report to reflect most current information. When I wrote it, the applicant had not yet received a rental license through the fire department, so that was a condition of approval. And now I'm modifying the language here, so I'll be presenting the most current information. So the existing 1,200 square foot house did not have a rental license, but now they did have one approved. So the house currently has 4 bedrooms. It's 3 on the ground floor and 1 in an attic. But the fire department informed the applicant that the attic bedroom is not possible. It does not meet code. They don't have enough ceiling height. Therefore, that shall not be used as a bedroom. So she will be removing all bedroom furnitures to make sure that she can keep in compliance. And then the fire department is also asking the applicant to remove a wall that currently exists that basically gets one of the bedrooms that used to be a big bedroom and splits that in half. So half of that, so one of the bedrooms do not have a secondary means of egress for fire safety, and there's no way to add a window. So the fire department also conditioned the rental license on the removal of that wall, so the applicant is also aware of that. We'll be applying for a building permit to accomplish that. So the long-term and short-term rental license would be continued to be capped to no more than 2 unrelated individuals or a family, since the principal residence is currently a single-family dwelling. And then the applicant is not proposing any external building or site alterations at this time. The land uses on the surrounding property are all residential. in the future land use map, and the current use is single family all around it. The zoning is CD3 in this whole neighborhood, as you can see here on the map. And this is a picture of the current conditions built from South Elizabeth looking west. So this is the principal residence where the short-term rental will take place. And this is an image of the detached garage. And I am sorry, but you cannot see the accessory dwelling unit, which is right after that fence ends. So the property is quite a little bit longer. So it has, one principal dwelling, a garage, and an accessory dwelling. It's a small house, kind of like same size as the garage, just single story, very small. And they have their own parking space on that accessory dwelling. So when looking at the general standards for the special use, the house is really in character. They're not changing anything, and it's an existing condition. So she already is able to get the rental license after she makes those adjustments. So I don't see any issues here. And then I usually point to traffic. She is able to fit enough cars over there. So again, the accessory dwelling unit has a one parking spot, and then you can also fit 3 other parking spaces in the principal residence area. So the only thing that I put as a condition of approval is that she complies with all the fire department requirements, and then requirements for the building safety department, which is basically for her to apply for the building permit to do any internal work. So with all the considerations here, the written analysis that she provided, as well as with the conditions that I'm being proposing tonight, the proposed short-term rental is located 2 blocks away from Mission Street. It's not too far from downtown, and it helps support businesses by bringing more tourists to the area. The neighborhood itself does have 5 single-family homes and then 1 duplex with rental licenses, which represent 15% of the existing parcels. And then 2 blocks away from the subject parcel, there is 1 licensed short-term rental that came to the Planning Commission, I believe, last year. You may recall it is above the All Things Divine Boutique at 437 South Mission Street. The owner will be closely monitoring gas since her mother will be leaving the premises, and she did, want to make sure that she would make sure that, they're not doing any noise after hours, and that they're going to be compliant with our trash management requirements in the city code. The principal residence does not have outdoor gathering spaces facing the street, except for a small outdoor area along Illinois. It was fenced, so that already helps reduce any potential noise or disturbance for during the day gatherings. And then the site has a detached 1-car garage that I mentioned, and a wide driveway that can accommodate another 2 vehicles. Separate parking exists for the ADU, so no traffic impacts are anticipated. With all this said, staff's recommendation is to approve SUP-25-04, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall meet the rental license requirements from the fire department, and 2, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of building safety. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone from the Planning Commission have any questions for?
Yeah, quickly, you said they'll be monitoring gas?
Guests.
Oh, gas, okay, sorry.
Yeah, she's going to live there, so.
I understand now.
Thank you. If the applicant is here, okay, if you would like to comment, you're welcome to. Okay, sure.
Hi, I'm Bobby Brown. Do I stand here?
Yep.
I did have the fire inspection and I did take the door down. They were requiring, and they had told me I passed, so I guess I'll have to get with them on that. to
Yeah.
see. And I already knew about the upstairs. That was from the pre-fire inspection back in November.
Yeah, so they're going to be sending you a formal letter tomorrow.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, will you decide now? Or do you?
Yes.
You do? Okay, bye.
All right. Now we'll open this up for public comment, or anyone from the public would like to, okay, if you could come up. And if you could state your name and your address?
My name is Frank Bowles. The address is 207 South Elizabeth, about 3/4 of a block from the residence. With respect to the staff and to the applicant, I would speak against this proposal. A couple of reasons. One is, as staff noted, this is a almost entirely residential neighborhood. The goal of zoning, after all, is to keep residential neighborhoods residential and commercial interests out of residential neighborhoods. This seems basically antithetical to the idea of the whole zoning codes of the city. If you want residential neighborhoods, you should maintain them. So I think there should be, although it is perfectly legal to give this variance, there should be caution in doing so. A couple other points. I would remind folks that Airbnbs have a reputation for questionable rentals, party houses. I recognize that the applicant has said there will be someone there to monitor it. Nobody's ever there 24/7, 7 days, 365. Things happen. It's unfortunate. I know the industry has attempted to address this problem. It's not that hard to get around the party house rule. You just have somebody else put it in someone else's name. It's not that difficult. So I have concerns. I am concerned about parking. I understand staff feels there is enough. I'm doubtful, although it does help that the number of bedrooms have been reduced. That does tend to modify that problem, but still, you need parking. Finally, I am concerned that this is a permanent grant, because there's no renewal process. Once it's given, it's given. I understand the applicant's mother will, I'm sure, try to do her best to monitor the situation. But in any situation, times change, people move on, and unfortunately, those of us who live in the neighborhood are stuck with what happens. Things can't change. I have moved into situations where some very nice people have gotten variances, sold the house, and the next folks were not so nice. This is a problem because there is no time limit on this variance. Once it's given, it's given. And my understanding, it is transferable when the house is sold. So, we're making a long-term change here to a neighborhood which is residential and is going to be a perpetual change. Because of that, I think it should be denied. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else from the public? Okay. And also, if you could introduce your name and your address?
Sure. Name is Oscar Millick. I'm 321 South Elizabeth Street, right down the street. Similar to the previous speaker, I just wanted to urge the committee to be very cautious with this decision because this is a community, it's a residential community that works together, works closely. A lot of people know each other very well, and even if somebody is renting there long-term, there's also the ability to work with them, to know them, to be able to come together and solve any potential issues that might arise as far as noise complaints or anything like that. But with short-term rentals, there's very little recourse for the local community to get involved to take care of any issues. And in terms of expenses to the city, if there are any issues, it's going to be the police that get called in. It's going to use city resources rather than the community being able to take care of it themselves. I do appreciate that there would be somebody on the premises. It's not an absentee landlord situation. And I recognize that does improve the situation, but as the last speaker noted, it would be nice to put some sort of notation into the approval, if anything, that such maintenance needs to be consistent and does not stop if the mother decides to move away or some other situation occurs. Lastly, I did want to say that I feel like this does not necessarily serve a purpose for the city. I feel like there's no purpose for there to be a short-term rental in this area, except for college students to have a place for parties. It is close to downtown, and I recognize that our downtown is a growing place, but it does not have a tourist attraction purpose at this time. Maybe in the future, but thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Um, Do we,
Only if we have questions.
okay. Does anyone on the planning commission have any questions for the applicant?
I would ask the applicant if she spoke with her neighbors about the plans?
If you could come up to the,
I've spoken with my mother, because she lives next door, and then the neighbor next to her. But this is going to be under, like, the Airbnb company rental. People are screened, monitored. They have to put a deposit down. There's house rules. Most of them go 11 PM to 7 AM is a quiet time. I was thinking about 10 PM. I've rented my place next door before, and I've had nothing but trouble, because then you got to evict people, they destroy it, they do what they want. The reason I've had my house up for sale a year now, nobody's had any interest, and at this point, I'm going to leave. So this was the thought I had. And when it's an Airbnb, if people are doing things they're not supposed to, it's like a hotel, they're going to leave that night. They don't get to stay. There's no eviction process. They're not moving their things in. I will have a stipulation, who's ever renting it has to be there, so parents can't rent for their children. There's no parties. My mother actually does never leave and just sits there and stares out the window and tells me everything going on. I mean, yeah, she could leave maybe someday, but she lives there for free. So I don't think it's going to happen. But I'm really going to be cautious. Otherwise, it would turn into just a rental, and I would have a lot of trouble, because I've just had so much trouble with renters in the past, with the one next door.
okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so any online questions or for public comment?
No one is on Zoom, and I don't see an email.
Okay. All right, and so open up for discussion?
Well, just for the sake of discussion, the approvals of these short-term rentals include a code enforcement aspect, is my understanding. My sort of a discussion point to the commission.
Okay.
Or to staff.
Sure, so I'll chime in. So the rental license that is required for both long-term rentals and short-term rentals, you would have an annual inspection from the fire department to ensure that the premises is safe for occupation, complies with codes and ordinances, is not infringing on any code that could prevent an issue safety-wise. Regarding noise, odor, issues like that, that is the whole purpose of a special use permit. It is to make sure that while we could grant a special use permit to somebody, to a location, if occupants or there's something occurring that is going against those standards, then we could send letters, we have penalty structures to take enforcement action against that, and we could revoke the special use permit. And that would be through the planning department, building safety department for those communications.
So to clarify, would, like neighbors, if they had a complaint, would they make that first to the applicant or to the city?
To the city.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Move to approve SCP 2504, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall meet the rental license requirements from the fire department. And 2, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of building safety.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. The next item on our agenda is site plan review, a request for amendment to SPR 2503, which is related to SUP 2503. Ms. Palvidico, if you could please introduce the item.
Sure. So this next item is going to sound very familiar. We just approved this 2 meetings ago. So the applicant, Dennis Proto, on behalf of Brew Horizons, received approval, actually last meeting, March 7th, for a new drive-through restaurant at this location, 1203 South Mission Street. So staff has requested the applicant to amend their site plan after we became aware of a cross-access easement agreement that had been recorded on Taco Bell's property, so not on this property, but on Taco Bell property, granting an easement in between Taco Bell and the Seven Brew parcel, dated as of August 6, 2010. So that non-exclusive conditional access easement agreement had the purpose of granting vehicular access to and from, so two-way, and between, again, Taco Bell and any future development that could occur on the site, which is currently vacant. So the recorded easement also has an expiration date as of August 6, 2025, so just in a few months. So luckily, we were able to find that easement, and then we were able to re-engage in a conversation with Taco Bell owners, saying that they are required to provide that easement. So we have worked extensively with both Taco Bell and Seven Brew to make sure that we have a site plan that complies with that easement agreement of the past. And then the Seven Brew applicant also, when doing that exercise, they realized that they're going to be losing parking spots. So they have proposed to add 3 additional staff parkings on the south property line. So I'm going to show you some slides. So here, just for context again, in case we had one of you missing the meeting. So this is the location at 1203 South Mission Street. On the south property boundary, you have medical offices, and then they are providing a cross-access between the medical office and their site. And then on the north property boundary, you have Taco Bell. On the east, we have multiple family apartment building. And on the west, we have China Master Restaurant. The future land use for this whole area is mixed-use medium, and we have a mix of CD4 on the east side, and multiple family in CD5. So this is the location from South Mission looking south. So this is the vacant parcel where the yellow sign is. You're looking at the doctor office building in the back. And this is the other view from the side looking northwest, and you can see Taco Bell at the right corner here. So this is the site plan that was approved by the Planning Commission on March. You can see that staff had originally suggested a cross-access towards the back of the property. And at that time, Taco Bell did not agree in granting. So it's only if Taco Bell would ever to redevelop that site or someone else that we would be able to actually make the connection. So after finding this cross-access easement document, the current document locates the access easement of a 20-foot in width right here at the frontage area. And then the applicant has shifted the parking to fit that, and then have a proposed 3 staff parking here in the south. On a perfect world, any parking spot is not going to be backing up to drive-through lanes. But here, the applicant already has the inner lane compliant 100% with the ordinance requirements. So we have 200 feet of stacking already being met at the inner area. And then the outermost lane is beyond, goes beyond 200 feet. The parking that you see here on site is really just for staff because they don't have a sitting down restaurant area. Therefore, staff do not see an issue with the proposed parking. And in that way, they're better able to accommodate staff parking. As you remember, they don't have basically electronic devices, and it's all kind of handled with the staff that is there getting the request and then delivering the drinks. So with that, according to section 154.412, paragraph A to paragraph 23, cross-access easement shall be provided between all contiguous parking areas and parking lots, except where such areas or lots are accessed from rear lane or rear alley. So again, this is a very good opportunity for us to get cross-access easement between the 2 parcels, and we are proposing this change to reflect that. This is the copy of the document that I put it in a packet for you all. And staff's recommendation here is for the Planning Commission to approve an amendment to SPR-25-03 to move the 7 Brew to Taco Bell cross-access connection to match the location described in the cross-access easement agreement dated from 2010, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall submit a revised site plan showing the modified off-street parking striping at Taco Bell site reflecting the modified cross-access connection. And 2, the applicant shall amend and record a cross-access easement agreement reflecting the proposed site plan and submit a copy to the City of Mount Pleasant. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Does anyone from the planning commission have any questions for?
I do. So it's not clear to me whether this cross-access connection is being built or whether we're just updating the easement so that in the future it can be built.
It will be built.
It will be built,
Yeah.
okay.
So this 2010 document required Taco Bell to provide that opening. So then I'm just going to go back to the site plan, and I forgot to mention this detail. So you can see how they're showing that they would be cutting the area here, the island. And then Taco Bell will just requiring that they change the striping here because they're obviously losing 2 parking spots and will likely need some sort of hatch area here. So I'll just need a revised document to actually show a clear cross-access, but they would be building it.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. You said that the current easement expires this year?
Yes, so it expires if 7 Brew would to not approve an easement on their site. Luckily, we worked with them and they are willing to provide that access. So it's kind of backwards. The ordinance does require, but we cannot force property owners to provide the easement. So that's how it was framed. It's an interesting document.
Okay, and everybody wants to modify this easement by mutual consent?
Yeah, so nothing is being modified in terms of location and width.
I thought the width was being changed from 20 to 14.
So I did, sorry, I forgot to mention, I did revise the document because Taco Bell was not okay with the 14-foot.
Okay, so it's staying 20 feet.
It stayed 20 feet,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Is there an expiration on a new agreement?
No, usually
Okay.
we don't put any expiration date.
I thought that was unusual too.
Thanks for your questions.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing no questions, if the applicant is here,
The applicant is on Zoom.
okay.
So John, if you want to unmute yourself, if you have anything to share.
Hey, good evening. Are you guys able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it, Manuela. She's worked really hard with us to kind of push this over the finish line and get everybody together, so I appreciate it. I don't really have anything additional. Happy to answer any questions you have. I am the civil engineer on the project, so if you have anything additional, feel free to ask.
Okay. Looks like we don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So at this time, we'll open up for public comment. No? No, for this, okay.
No public hearing for this one.
Okay. And then, so I'll open for discussion.
Move to approve an amendment to SUP-25-03
SPR.
and SPR-25-03 to move the cross-access connection from 7 Brew to Taco Bell from the northeast corner of the side to the west, matching the same location as described in the cross-access easement agreement from 2010, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the applicant shall submit a revised site plan showing the modified off-street parking stripping at Taco Bell's site, reflecting the modified cross-access connection. Number 2, the applicant shall amend and record a cross-access easement agreement reflecting the proposed site plan and submit a copy to the City of Mount Pleasant.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on our agenda is new business for the 2050 master plan update.
All right, so I will just introduce Jason Ball from Progressive Companies, and then Phil Biscorner, who are going to be joining us here. So Phil is the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Public Spaces for the City of Mount Pleasant, and Jason Ball, you met him in previous presentations about the Mission Street Plan. He's a senior planner at Progressive Companies, a consulting firm who is helping us through both the Mission Street Improvement Plan and the Master Plan Update. So Jason's going to have here a presentation for you all that kind of follows the outline of a memo that he wrote and I provided to you by email and also posted on the website for the public to be able to access that memo with more detailed list of all the changes. So we're going to be walking you through, and then all of us are going to chime in during the presentation. Go ahead.
Thank you, Manuela. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Again, Jason Ball, happy to be with you again tonight. So we're going to walk through just briefly the process for the master plan update. We spoke in January about the Mission Street Improvement Plan. This is a very targeted master plan update. So we're doing surgery here with the plan instead of doing a full scale update. So the intent of the presentation tonight is just sort of clearly point out those portions of the plan that have been changed as a result of the Mission Street Improvement Plan. And because we were opening up the plan, there's a requirement from the Michigan DNR, and Phil can speak to this more, that every 5 years you need to update your Parks and Recreation plan in order to be eligible for state grants. So because we were opening up the plan for the Mission Street Improvement Plan, it also made sense to update the Parks and Recreation portion of the plan at the same time. So those are the two main changes that are happening, and then I'll say some minor tweaks to reflect things that were in the plan in 2020 that have gotten done. So we wanted to be sure to show that and update goals and objectives to note things that are no longer a needed goal and objective because it's been accomplished. Just generally speaking, this is an outline of the overall master plan update process. I apologize for the small text there. There are essentially 10 things we're going to do to walk through this update. We are at step 2. And so that is, as a planning commission, your opportunity tonight, if you so choose, is to take action to send this plan or recommend this plan to City Commission. And at that time, City Commission approves it for distribution. In other words, the plan now begins a formal comment period. At the same time, the Parks and Recreation portion of the plan will be presented to the Parks and Recreation Commission, and will enter this formal 63-day review period that's required by state law. At the end of that period of time, it comes back to you all for a public hearing and final action before it goes to City Commission one final time. So just so you understand, we're at the very beginning of that process, and so you can start it tonight if you feel like you're comfortable with the contents, or you can ask for changes and we can bring it back to you when appropriate. Does that process make sense to everybody? Any questions about that at all? Okay. So just to walk through plan updates, as I'm sure you all are familiar, the master plan is made up of 6 books, book 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll just step through some key changes that were made to the plan. And then if you have any questions, let me know. I think you all have a copy or received a copy of the updated plan and been able to see it. So obviously, the acknowledgements page has been updated in all the chapters, so there are new staff members, new people that were involved in this update, so those names are changed. There's a new introductory letter from the city manager. There are also some updates made to text in the purpose of a master plan that reflected this update process. There's a section in the executive summary that summarizes every planning effort that's happened in the city of Mount Pleasant since the initial master plan. So we updated that section to include this planning effort. And then the summaries of goals and objectives were updated as well to reflect those changes to goals and objectives I mentioned, and we can walk through that in more detail if needed. So that's book 0 is pretty straightforward. It's the executive summary. Any questions about any of those changes? When you all looked at that, anything that came to mind? Okay. Next for book 1. So here's where there are some substantial changes that will affect your role as planning commissioners. So as a result of the Mission Street Improvement Plan, we've added a new future land use classification that we're calling mixed use regional corridor. And that applies to the southern portion of Mission Street. Today, that southern portion of Mission Street has the same future land use classification as downtown. And as you all are familiar with, that's created some challenges for development because obviously those two places are really different. So we're recommending a new future land use classification that then allows for changes in the zoning ordinance that you've already started, but sort of more full-scale changes to the zoning code that will sort of create more options for redevelopment in Mission Street as it progresses to an area that's more pedestrian-friendly and safe, but we aren't going all the way to having it be like downtown today. So that includes some tweaks to simple language to be more flexible, as well as new clear recommendations for amending the CD4 zoning district, as well as creating a new, what we're calling a CD6 zoning district, which would be that regional corridor. So this is your current future land use map, and then this is the change. So the change, just we add this dark purple section here on Southern Mission Street, and that's the mixed-use regional corridor. The rest of the future land use map remains unchanged. Any questions about the future land use map element of that from anyone? Okay. The next change then is the addition of the mixed-use regional corridor future land use type. This is the page from the plan that provides a summary of that future land use classification. Again, Mission Street south of Preston. We're emphasizing access management. So we just talked about, or you all just talked about utilizing an access easement to not create an extra driveway. So encouraging that because fewer driveways increases safety. Also allowing some more reasonable building setbacks versus requiring buildings to be built to the property line was the requirement today. And doing things like allowing parking or requiring parking to be behind the front face of the building, or not requiring necessarily to be in the rear yard. So there are a variety of other recommendations and changes that come out of that change to the mixed-use regional corridor. But really just trying to make a more gentle progression between sort of the vision for transition in that area versus going sort of all the way to envisioning it be something like downtown today. Otherwise, pages that were updated, so the left-hand side is the current version of the plan, the right-hand side is the new version. So we split up this idea of implementing CD4 with walkable housing, and we have a separate section about walkable housing versus the CD4 section, which is different. So this is that page that recommends changes to the CD4 district. Again, you'll recognize some graphics from the Mission Street Improvement Plan there, and providing for that setback area. Any questions about those changes to Book 1?
What's the reasoning for stopping at Preston Street?
So that's where the current future land use changes from being the sort of mixed-use high intensity to medium, and so we maintained that.
Okay.
It's also kind of the place where the character of the corridor really shifts. So you start to get smaller blocks, smaller lots, smaller buildings. You aren't as a big box store around that area, so that's the rationale.
Okay, thank you.
Can you provide an overview of the difference in setbacks for us in this area you're just discussing for CD6?
Yeah, so important clarification. So we're sort of creating an option with the future land use plan to edit your zoning code, but we aren't saying setback should be this. So we're giving some guidance. So the examples here are to try to allow for that setback to also include like vehicular circulation, so not parking in the front, but allow for a vehicle lane in front of a building. Mm-hmm. The big shift that makes is it allows drive-throughs to not have to have two driveways. So today, if your building's set to the property line and you have a drive-through, you have to have a drive-through on one side of the building, around the building, or a driveway on one side of the building and out around the building the other. If you allow for that circulation in front, you could have one driveway, do the loop and come back out. And reducing driveways has a big impact on safety, and that was one of the things we really wanted to accomplish. And drive-through, you have to have a drive-through one side of the building, around the building, and a driveway on one side of the building, out around the building the other. Is that my echo? Oh, okay. So the future land use plan identifies a need to allow for that setback, but we aren't specifying the distance. That's sort of a next step for you all to explore as you explore zoning changes with this. Any other questions on that book number 1? Okay. Book number 2, which is mobility, we updated several sections to reflect the Mission Street Improvement Plan, and then we just literally moved where access management was, so it wasn't the last thing in the book because it's important. We didn't want it to be last, so it's second to last now. So this is the old future land use, or this is the current future transportation plan for the city. You'll notice on the right-hand side, we have several different kinds of street typologies. We also have several different kinds of intersections, and each of the blue circles is a proposed roundabout on Mission Street. This is the new proposed plan, so you'll see that there's only one roundabout now at Bluegrass. And we changed what used to be called multimodal intersections to identifying enhanced non-motorized crossings. So essentially places where people can cross Mission that today they can't, or it's very difficult. You'll also notice that in street typologies, we shrunk the number of street typologies. So connector, multimodal thoroughfare, and multimodal avenue were all in the old plan, but we got rid of modern boulevard. And that primarily is because modern boulevard used to apply to Mission Street. It included on-street parking on Mission, which is not something that is feasible for several different reasons. And so this approach kind of simplifies those street types in the city down to, our main thoroughfares, our sort of secondary avenues, and then our connector streets. Another section that changed, the old plan included a recommendation or identification of an opportunity to create an interchange at Broomfield and 127. The language there, you can't see it in this slide, but the language included some things like, that partially being a goal to reduce traffic on Mission Street. That is not our intent. We heard really clearly during the Mission Street Improvement Plan process that the goal is actually to bring more vibrancy back to Mission Street, not push cars away. And so rather than sort of encouraging creation of a brand new interchange, our recommendation is exploring ways to allow the interchange at 127 on the southern portion of Mission Street to go both ways instead of being just a one-way interchange. That way you don't have to go all the way through Mission Street if you want to go north or south, but you have options there. Today, if you want to go north and you're at the southern end of Mission, you have to drive all the way up and then go over on M20. So that section has changed, is quite different from what was in the previous plan. Again, based on feedback, we heard really clearly that one of our goals was not to reduce traffic, but actually allow more traffic to move on Mission more effectively. We also have a new non-motorized network plan. This is the section of the plan from from the current master plan. It references a non-motorized plan that was done in 2012. That section is still in the plan, but we added a new non-motorized framework as part of the Mission Street Improvement Plan that just identifies, again, those same proposed crossing locations on Mission Street, as well as an opportunity to create a north-south bike connection on Kinney. So Kinney's 2 blocks over from Mission Street. It's a nice neighborhood street with a boulevard that would make a lot of sense for bikes. And what we found during our process was there really was just no good way to get bikes on North Mission. There's not enough space. And so looking at an alternative there, and then when we come down to South Mission Street, that area where we have the new future land use classification south of Preston, there's enough space there to add a multi-use pathway on Mission Street that could have both bikes and pedestrians on it. So this is a new plan that, again, is just a reflection of what was included in the Mission Street Improvement Plan. That's the edits to Book 2.
I have a question with the changes in number of roundabouts from the current master plan to the revisions that are getting proposed. Particularly with Broomfield, I recognize there's an easement issue, some of those roundabouts further north and whatnot. And maybe the bigger picture question is not about a roundabout, but what does this plan propose to make Broomfield at Mission safer, given that in some years this has been by frequency of crashes, not in some recent years, we have less students on campus now. Sometimes it's been in the top 10 most frequently crashed intersections, I think like 2014 and 2017 around then in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, great question. So we actually just had a call with MDOT last Friday to talk specifically about Broomfield and what opportunities there are to make improvements in the short term. So I think the improvement plan at the end, we had 6 implementation strategies, and that's been added to book 3. But one of those is we don't have to do everything at once, right? So if there are opportunities to make small improvements that are sort of cost effective, we should do that all day. So roundabouts are not small, cost-effective improvements. They're big, they're expensive, and they're not necessarily a lot safer for pedestrians. They can be kind of confusing for pedestrians because cars don't actually ever stop, right? The idea of a roundabout is everybody's always going through. So that was part of the reason for removing a lot of the roundabouts, not just the right-of-way issue, but also knowing that we wanted to be sure that Mission Street was safer for pedestrians, and roundabouts, while they can provide improvements, aren't necessarily a win for pedestrians.
Just to add on to what could be done on Broomfield, the main request for MDOT, and we don't have any final results of this, they're just going to be starting to look at numbers of turning, movements. And then the main request is to try to make sure that we can potentially reduce the curb to curb space. That is a huge curb to curb, and they recognize it. There is some leftover, kind of like a shoulder area in between the right lane turning lane and then the other lanes. So they're going to take a look at that and then see what could be done to make it safer. Potentially an island for pedestrians to be able to cross, and then stop in the middle and then cross again, like the idea of the narrow boulevard. Could be something that could be done on an intersection just to help with that crossing. If it's sizable enough and designed in a way that there's enough room for cars to see it, it could help. And then the other strategy that we do have in Book 3 is about ways to make left turns slower. So there's some really low-cost measures that we can add to the street to make more like 90-degree angled left turns that would have cars slow down a little bit. And then aside from that, they did recognize there's some signal issues that they are going to be investigating on Broomfield to make it better. So there's multiple things that they're going to be looking at, but not necessarily, a roundabout, but definitely we need improvements.
Without hijacking the conversation too much, with the signals, and I don't know if either of you would have the answer to this, I don't, but is it safer overall if the left turn lane goes first? Like in some states, the left turn is normally occurring first versus here, you have cases where someone goes out, they're, maybe worried the car behind them is going to honk and they try to sneak in when there's this limited window for a left turn. And then maybe at the end, then you get a light that can turn green if there's enough, the sensors pick up that there's cars turning. My hunch is that it's safer if the cars make a left turn first without any sort of oncoming traffic going. Is that part of the discussion?
Yeah, that is. Mm-hmm.
I do have a question. Hopefully we won't get too much off topic here, but if memory serves, with a decline in traffic around Mission and Broomfield and with fewer people in town, injuries have actually gone up. Is that true?
Well, and that's not just true for you all, right? So as we talked about last time, that's a nationwide trend.
Do you think
that traffic's generally down, but injuries are up?
Is that a smartphone thing? Has anybody figured that out?
Yeah, so I don't know that your guess is as good as mine. But I think, and we talked about this a little bit in our last presentation, that the trend is not true for all kinds of roads, right? So roads like 127, the safety change isn't that great. But roads like Mission Street, that there are these arterials that are trying to get people through, but two places at the same time, that danger, crash rate, fatality rate has really gone through the roof in the last 10 years. Distracted driving for sure has something to do with that. I don't know if it's all of it, but it absolutely has some impact there.
Yeah, I'd hate to wreck a corner and spend $1 zillion and still have a fat body count. So, but I guess we don't have an answer.
Well, and I think what I would say is we're looking at ways that we know are going to make impact. So we're not guessing at these, right? So I'm going to try to it worked. So this is that section of the plan. This was in the Mission Street Improvement Plan, but this is also now included in the master plan. So this is the recommendation for Broomfield. I'm going to keep zooming in. Again, this is not engineered and designed. This is just taking the information we heard from the community and thinking through options about way to improve an intersection. So, I don't know if you all can see that. Can everybody see that okay? So the big changes there, so the little yellow dots are left turn calming features. What that does, if I'm turning left from Mission onto Broomfield, instead of getting to cut the angle, I have to go all the way out in the middle of the intersection and make a left. So my left turn gets a lot slower.
This is the non-roundabout option.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, so this is what we're recommending in the plan.
Okay,
now.
so, all right, so
So-
the roundabout is out at Broomfield and?
Correct.
Oh.
No, it's no longer, the addition of all those roundabouts, other than at Bluegrass, is no
So the
longer in the plan.
roundabout would be at Bluegrass.
Did I say Broomfield? Sorry, Bluegrass.
I heard
Two
bluegrass
Bs.
earlier. Makes you feel better.
I meant Bluegrass, maybe we're connecting.
They both start with a B, so yeah. it's an
Yeah,
easy mistake to
I
make. So
apologize. So
No
this-
roundabout at Broomfield, roundabout at Bluegrass.
Bluegrass,
Okay.
southern end of the corridor.
All right.
So this is the recommendation for Broomfield. So in addition to adding those left turn calming movements, you also see looking at maybe getting rid of the right-hand turn lane there. That's something that MDOT's looking into, like Manuela mentioned with turning movements. Is that right-hand turn lane really needed? Is it not needed? Based on how many cars go through there. So MDOT's exploring that, but it's just a really wide intersection now. There's like 3 feet of just extra stripe pavement in the middle of it that doesn't really do anything today. And so all of those things just create a really big, wide intersection that people drive through really fast, and that makes it less safe.
Thank you.
Yeah, great questions. We appreciate it.
I have a question and kind of a
Yeah.
request. Do you have a visual of where, with Bluegrass Mission intersection and it still being a roundabout proposed, while it might not be heavy pedestrian traffic every day, I know that on like CMU football game days, there's heavy pedestrian traffic through there.
Yep.
So if there is not a stop in that traffic flow around that area, is there a pedestrian crossway that will be a safe place for like large numbers of students crossing?
And so this is a really good question. This is important to think about how this overall plan is going to work for Mission Street, right? So what we've done is we did a survey, we did community events, we met with our steering committee, we talked with the DDA and business owners, and we said, okay, these are the improvements that as a community we really can support for Mission Street. Now, exactly how that improvement gets designed and what it looks like is going to be up to MDOT. And so there's a critical step in there where, all right, MDOT gets the money to do the roundabout at Bluegrass. There's an element of that where there's an important discussion with the city, staff, engineers, residents about how does that roundabout get implemented? Because you can still do pedestrian crossing signals at roundabouts, right? So you could still have a flashing beacon that stops cars and people can walk across it if there's that much pedestrian traffic. There are options for it. It's just generally speaking, roundabouts, because we aren't as used to them, don't have great pedestrian outcomes compared to being able to narrow intersections, do more traditional things with pedestrian crossings.
Thank you.
Yep. So then in book 3, this is where the Mission Street Improvement Plan got ported into the master plan. So we updated the map that showed pedestrian sheds, the distance to walk from key locations throughout the city. There's the Mission Street section of the former plan is gone. There's a new Mission Street section that includes the same content that was in the summary document for the Mission Street Improvement Plan. We also updated the Town Center Vision Plan and the Town and Gown section based on some progress on projects in the city, and Manuela will speak to that. And then we updated the Economic Development Action Plan, just a couple of key things there to be sure that it lined up with the rest of the master plan update. So this is the old pedestrian shed map. It has the old future land use map under it. So the new pedestrian shed map has the new future land use map under it. And we changed some bubbles to be more accurate to show those distances, but no real significant changes there. For Mission Street, this is the old cover page of that showed this vision for the future of Mission Street. The proposed cross-sections here, I think, are sort of indicative of our approach now, which is a little less grandiose, thinking about how do we retrofit this corridor to work better, not completely drastically change it. And so again, all of the content in the plan is the same content from the summary document we went through in January. And Manuel, I don't know if you want to talk about the updates to the town, this section?
So, as you all know, we have completed the town center project. It has been on city's master plans for decades, so not just in the 2020, but even before that. So we just updated the section to reflect the vision plan that we got built last year. So that's the 3D image that we made for the grant application that we end up receiving to complete the project. So the language just reflects that. And then one thing that I pointed out in the end of this page here is the fact that there was a lot of public outreach that was done in 2020. And one of the main pieces of information that we learned from the city residents at that time was that there was an interest in strengthening the connections between downtown Mount Pleasant and Island Park. So when you go to the next page, Jason?
Yep, sorry.
Yeah. So, I think we don't have it here, but basically, there is another drawing that I put in this section that is a hand sketch that you probably saw on the next page. But it's basically the idea of potentially extending Oak Street right here through next to Green Tree, between City Hall and Green Tree, all the way, and then create a new vehicular bridge right next to the pedestrian bridge that we have going to Island Park, and make that connection to Island Park that way. So I replaced the drawing that was in the master plan that did not have that idea in, but it was more focused on the plaza, and then a pathway on an area right here where we have the grade difference. And instead, I created another drawing to show that connection. And we met, city staff met to see if that was a good idea. And we had Department of Public Works and then Parks Department and then planning all in support of that idea, as well as the city manager's office. So that's what we're proposing here for you.
Manuel, was there some issue that's trying to solve by having Oak Street go through to the park?
So maybe Phil can chime in, because Phil had a lot of passion for this.
The main thing, well, good evening. The main thing that we were trying to solve is that we only have one access point vehicularly to that park. And should anything happen down the road, that is a problem. And essentially, when you're coming out of Island Park, the hill is so steep that it just gets a little crazy. So if by adding this, it cancels out quite a few problems that we have just when we have significant events, like even for the farmer's market, it would be nice to have another entry and exit. So that was the main reasoning behind it.
So mostly it's public safety.
Yeah,
That's the reason.
that's really all it comes down to
Okay.
in the long run, but yeah, I mean, I can talk about it forever, but yeah, that was the main thing.
And then just generally, the city, we talked to staff that has been here for a long time, and the city is very passionate about the pedestrian bridge, so the drawing does not replace it, but keeps it and builds another bridge next door.
Okay.
Lastly then, in this book, we just made some minor tweaks to the economic development plan section. Right, that's hard to read. We just took out a couple of notes to reflect changes and clarity, and then added a couple of notes in, one to implement the master plan, and then two to kind of promote some of the changes we have with demographics, and looking at more options to provide for what we call sort of family formation age folks, where we're seeing increases, and we'll talk about this later. We're seeing an increase in folks in that age range between 30 and 45.
What are the town and gown changes? I think we skipped that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Manuela.
Yes, sorry about that. So, okay, so for this one, we have changed the section to have a picture of the yellow chair that we have in that location. So this, plan here kind of became obsolete. So we have that island area with the chair. And then, again, when looking at community outreach outcomes from the 2020 master plan, the city was really strongly wanting more to strengthen the connection between CMU and downtown. So then I just looked at the other end. So instead of looking north to Broadway, we're looking south here on South University to Bellows Street. So that's where you have that entry sign, Central Michigan University sign at the very end of it, where the C letter is on that image on the right. And I created 2 redevelopment scenarios just to illustrate the potential of those 2 parcels. So on your left, you see a taller building labeled letter D. It's showing maximizing our zoning ordinance for that parcel today. So that's where the old SBX store used to be. So I'm kind of illustrating a demolition and reconstruction of a mixed-use development of a commercial ground floor and then 4 stories on top. And then still keeping the same amount of parking, because I know that Ponder has an agreement with the old SBX site, so we have client parking. So it can work really well, that site. It was really fun to do the drawing. And then on the letter E is the old malt shop. So I kept that building because it has a very unique character, and I know that the community really loved that restaurant. I've been speaking with Ms. Haddad, who owns the site, and she's really interested in trying to see something happen again on that site, including restaurants. So what I'm illustrating is keeping the base and then adding a lightweight structure on top with some apartment buildings. In that way, I think the whole idea is that this intersection used to be a very lively community place, and we lost that when we lost the tenants. So putting that in the master plan will help us basically indicate that those are priority sites, and then we can look for developers and doing partnerships, get grants, work with MEDC, for example, for pre-development funding, those sorts of things. So, yeah.
Has this been mooted with the university as well, out of curiosity? Because I'm aware of certain people in the university being interested in doing something else with that site, so I was just sort of curious how that connects.
Yeah. So my connection with CMU is always through the facilities manager. So I did speak with him about this and indicated that we wanted to put something in the master plan just to show the development potential, because I think unfortunately, folks out there do not know that Mount Pleasant has this zoning ordinance that allows for that amount of square footage. So they were on board with us, and obviously this is a policy document. They understand what a master plan is. It's not an actual plan, but more like a marketing strategy for that. Yeah, thanks.
And then I just was going to show, this is the changed image that Manuela was referencing.
Yes, the
Sorry,
picture.
I grabbed the wrong page for my
Thank you.
presentation. So then the next big update is to Book 4. So Book 4 is the Parks and Recreation Plan. There are enough changes in that, we can't make them in a bullet list. So I think Phil just wanted to talk through some of the key updates to that, and I'll just pull it up here, Phil, so you can scroll through it as you talk about it.
This is the updated version?
Yes, this is the one online.
So I can do this pretty quick. Most of the things in here are just because we had some changes in the department, and others are just because the years changed a little bit. The first thing that we will come to is just our administrative structure. The majority of the document itself has stayed the same. We changed a couple pictures, but that was just to bring a little liveliness to it and have some different pictures in there of new stuff. The administrative structure, that has changed just because we combined both the Parks and the Recreation Department. So When I first got here, we had a parks and a recreation, so now we're one department, so that just reflects that. Then this slide, or this page here, is just updated budget numbers. So it had the previous 5 years before that plan, so we just updated those numbers. There is the grant history. We just added the 2024 Mid-Michigan Pathway North Segment Grant, which we just got. That will be for the project that will take the path from Nelson all the way up to Mission Creek. That is scheduled now for 26, just due to processes that we do not have control over. And then the other main thing is way down here at the bottom. These maps are all the same. The individual parks. So what I did, you'll see, this one doesn't have one, but so in the bottom left there, you see the action plan summary. Those are just updated to reflect what the CIP has in store for that park in the next 5 years. It's reflective of what it was the previous 5 years. So we just updated those. And then the major change is the CIP itself. Catch up. Okay. So this is just reflecting the 5 years that we have in our current CIP plan. We already know that there's one change that needs to be made before this is adopted, but that is a dam project for Mill Pond Park, which was scheduled for this summer, but due to Eagle, we have to push it to next for some permitting. But that is it. The one thing we did add to this is we did put the previous 5 years of what we've completed in our park projects. And then the final thing is just piecing out what we still have left in the 88 transition plan. So, which for the most part is sidewalks and things like that. So, but that is all that we've changed. The majority of this master plan, it mirrors what we are required to put out for the DNR to be eligible for trust fund grants and the state funding. So we try to follow that. To get some of the data, the outreach and everything, we did a recreation needs assessment. We finished that last year, and so we're using that data, which will be in book 5. So, any questions? Pretty straightforward. Thank you.
So then the final book, book 5, as Phil just mentioned, there's a new section summarizing the engagement and needs assessment that was done. That's on page 46 of the book. We then made updates to a variety of goals and objectives. So in the memo you all received, there's a list of about a dozen or so goals and objectives that received updates. Many of them were sort of minor and for clarity, and then a couple that were significant. So I guess for you all as planning commissioners, is it helpful for us to step through those updates? Were you able to look at them? Did they make sense? Happy to walk through all of them if you'd like, but certainly don't need to if you're comfortable with the goals and objective changes. Step through them? Sounds good.
So while Jason opens the document, Should I start? Or
Sure, oh, sorry, I
You're
thought it was
opening-
already,
book 5?
thought it was already up.
So some of these changes reflect items that we concluded. So the first one is objective 1.4. We adopted the property maintenance code in 2023, right? The IPMC. So basically, we have now this ordinance that allows us to make sure that our properties are being well maintained. So since that was adopted, we have removed that. And then 1.7, we made changes to reflect the fact that we now have approved a new payment in lieu of taxes program that was adopted, I believe, end of 2022. And you do remember Spire's development proposal here for Mill and Oak Street. So that pilot program is still in effect. So if there are other projects that want to come forward, we could take a look at them. And then also overnight parking on city streets are allowed. That came right after the zoning ordinance was updated, since we don't have parking requirements anymore. Objective 1.9 is a new objective for the Mission Street Improvement Plan. I don't know if Jason wants to expand that, but you can see here on the slide.
Yep, and so that is just doing what we said we wanted to do in the zoning plan in terms of creating a new zoning district for that portion of the corridor.
And then on the second book, Connected Mobility Systems, we have objective 2.3. It was rewritten to also reflect the Mission Street Plan. So this objective here talked about us meeting with Central Michigan University and MDOT on a quarterly basis. We're going to continue to meet on a quarterly basis as we progress. But then we did make some adjustments here to make sure that we are continuing on the development of the plan, basically.
Yeah, I think the key thing there is, again, emphasizing that we want to increase activity on Mission Street, not reduce traffic, right? So that was a key element of this objective, is really focusing on increasing activity, bringing people back to Mission Street versus having them stay away.
And then the next one will be 2.4. A new bullet point was added to advance a trail project connecting Nelson Park and to the dog park. That was something that Phil requested, since that's part of the parks plan. 2.5, we removed a bullet point regarding bicycle route signage that was required by the Public Works Department, and that's just because they have concluded their work on bicycle routes, so they said that it was obsolete. 2.6 is a new bullet point that was added to expand the scope of public transit to also include the potential passenger rail that may come through Mount Pleasant and connect Ann Arbor and Detroit to Traverse City. Very exciting. Hopefully that happens. And then 2.8 is a new bullet point that was added to enable the creation of private parking garages. So this one may sound crazy, but basically we don't allow today in the zoning ordinance just a standalone parking garage. We require that it's behind a building. There are other ways to build parking garages. If, let's say, in the very future, if we get a passenger rail, we may need more parking downtown. So there are ways to do mixed-use parking, so commercial on the ground floor and then parking on top. So that's just something for us to explore, so I put it in there in case we want to look at it in the future, since it's a 2050 vision plan. 3.4 is a new, so we're coming into the redevelopment book 3. 3.4 is a new bullet point that was added to engage property owners along Mission Street to redevelop and repurpose vacant property. This is again related to the plan. 3.7 is a bullet point regarding connections between downtown and Island Park, for more clarity on that, related to what I presented. And then 3.8, we added the bullet point to also include the word south to encourage incremental development throughout the city. So we talked about just walkable neighborhoods, and we didn't have south listed. And then the fifth book, we have 5.1, which was an update to that objective to include a marketing plan that is citywide. So before it was just focused on downtown, but I think it's nice to think about a citywide marketing plan. And then also establishing potentially a marketing budget so we can start to push some more interesting messages, including those that Jason's going to be talking about our demographics chapter changes. 5.2, we updated the objective to include development of a citywide economic development plan. And the city manager's office is going to be leading that work throughout the year, and we're going to be part of that too. And then objective 5.3, it was just a clarity added there. 5.5 added for clarity, and we added a new bullet point to fund neighborhood-based projects. So some of you may recall that we used to have a mini grant program that allowed basically neighborhoods to throw block parties and the like. So I'm thinking about revisiting that and maybe increase the scope a little bit, maybe allow some neighborhood signage and some other things that I know that you all have been thinking about for a while. So just putting it there so we can, have more discussions. And then 5.7, we removed the town center bullet to reflect the project completeness. So that should be it, right?
Yep. Any questions on the updates to objectives? All right. And then, so lastly, so one of the other sections that's entirely new is the demographic sections. The demographic section is completely updated, with the exception of there's a summary of a housing study, a target market analysis that was done, I believe, in 2016. That stayed, so that didn't change at all. Everything else in that section is new. New text, new charts, updated based on today versus the 2018, 2019 data that was there before. One of the things they added is the change in CMU enrollment. This has come up a couple times already. So this chart just shows change in CMU enrollment from over the last 10 years. And so you can see the decrease in on-campus enrollment. But getting back to the comment we made in the economic development plan, it's interesting when you break down population change in the city then based on age brackets. So in the last 10 years, between 2010 and 2020, when we have really reliable census data, you can see a big drop off in the percentage of people between 20 and 24. And so green line here is Mount Pleasant, orange line is state of Michigan. So, how much are we keeping track with the state of Michigan, or where are we different? And what's really interesting about that is the group of folks between 35 and 44. So the state as a whole lost 7.4%. In that age group, you gained 25.5%. So that age group increased by 25% over that 10-year period. That's pretty significant. A lot of communities would love to have more people in that age group because they, like me, have kids, spend lots of money, make bad decisions about buying houses, do all the things that sort of drive local economies, for better or worse, send their kids to school. So an increase in that age group is really interesting. I don't have an answer for why that is, but obviously as you're seeing, a decrease in the number of people that are in the sort of college age range, you're seeing increases in that age range, and then a slightly stronger increase of people that are sort of late career years, 55 to 74 compared to the state as well. So other pieces that were we wanted to point out that were new or we felt were important to think about. We added a whole section on commuting. The last plan didn't really include anything on jobs and inflow and outflow in Mount Pleasant. So that green circle there, that's kind of hard to see. What it says is that there are 12,000 people or so that come into Mount Pleasant every day for work, 2,100 people that live and work here, and 4,500 that leave for work. So you're a work destination. And so what that means is you also have an opportunity, if you want to be a home destination for a lot of those people that live and work here. So one of the other charts at the bottom there, it's hard to see here, but the blue line is jobs and the red line is workers. And so where there's big differences there, you have less people that work in that industry or that work in that industry that live here versus people that come here to work in that industry. So not surprisingly, in educational services, you have a lot of people that come here to work, but fewer people that actually live here that work in that industry. The same is true for healthcare and social assistance because of the hospital. So what that means is you have an opportunity to potentially capture those folks to be members of your community, not just workers. Otherwise, we did include an update on housing information. The state of Michigan did a statewide housing gap analysis in 2021. So we've included that information as an update here. I will say there's a big caveat there because that analysis happened like COVID years. And so those numbers are hard to know how much they reflect reality. But it does show pretty significant demand for housing in Mount Pleasant, 80 owner-occupied units and 731 rental units. We compared it to the city of Midland. It's your sort of next closest sort of major metro. And looking at the whole market for Midland, you can see that the state's housing analysis shows more demand for rental units in Mount Pleasant than in Midland. And then lastly, the one we wanted to point out was on household income distribution. So the three bar charts there, or the three colors, show change from 2017 to 2022. And the reason we picked those years is that kind of reflects the shift in demographic change. That's where CMU really started to lose students in population. And so you can see there's an increase in the number of households that are earning less than $10,000, but there's also a steady increase in households that are earning $75,000 and up. And so again, can't tell you exactly what that is or what's happening there, but it would make sense that that aligns with your change in number of households that are in that 35 to 44 range, where you have a lot of households that maybe have two income family that have more significant incomes because they've got to spend it all on their kids. And so you're seeing some sort of shifts in demographic and age change over time that may reflect kind of a shift in Mount Pleasant's characteristics. Not drastic, you're still going to be a college town, but maybe a little more balanced in terms of being a place that families also choose to live. So with that, happy to talk through any other elements of the plan. Again, this seems like a lot, but your plan itself is hundreds of pages. So we really tried to be as diligent as possible to make updates only where it was absolutely necessary. And leave a lot of the plan alone, with obviously the big change being the Parks and Rec update, and then the changes to the Mission Street section based on the improvement plan work. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I was wondering if we need a motion for the recommendation to send this as is to the city commission. So yeah, this is the way I frame the request in action.
Okay.
For the planning commission to refer the proposed 2050 master plan update to the city commission for their consideration and release for a 63-day review and comment period consistent with and exceeding the requirements of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act.
I will move to refer the proposed 2050 master plan update to the city commission.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is now public comment. So if anyone from the public would like to comment in general or specifically about the master plan, now is the time. And if you could state your name and your address, and just a friendly reminder that we do have a time limit of 5 minutes per person.
I don't need that.
Is that okay?
I'm Gisela Moffett, and I live at 1101 Watson Road. And thanks to Jason here, I can rip up what I wanted to say, because I was under the impression that the master plan would also include discussion of the corner of Broomfield and South Crawford, because that was a big topic last year, and it hasn't been resolved. And I thought maybe this is going to be picked up here in the master plan, or recommendations for the master plan. But what I was going to say, I mean, there were excellent delivery here. I'm amazed here, you did a ton of work here to accomplish this here, and I greatly appreciate that work for our city. But what we do need is housing, and affordable housing, and especially like for professional people that would like to stay here in Mount Pleasant, work here, and raise their children. And so we would like to see here that this corner piece, which is now still residential and commercial, would be used for housing development. And the city planner had a great plan there to develop here this area as a little community, that is walkable, that has access here to, and is support, it's a mixture, of apartment building, but also private housing. And so homeowners, we want to support because they not only bring in taxes, but they also bring stability to a neighborhood. So I hope here when this comes for discussion, you will consider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to comment? Has anyone joined us online?
We may have somebody. If you want to speak, please raise your hand on the feature on Zoom. I don't think we have anybody who would like to speak tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that means the next item on our agenda is staff report.
All right, so I just have a quick announcement. I'm part of a local group, a sustainability group, through several other organizations here, but so staff from the city, myself, and then MMDC and the Discovery Museum in Green Tree, we came together on a party committee or event committee to create this Earth Day event. So we are going to be doing an Earth Day event on April 22nd at the Farmers Market Pavilion in Island Park. And it's going to be from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's going to be for all ages. We're trying to get vendors to basically come and have a table to talk about their initiatives, if they're service providers, or just folks that really care about the environment and how to make Mount Pleasant more sustainable. So we have some folks that already confirmed attendance. So that includes Consumers Energy, DTE, J-Rank Electric, CMU Sustainability Partnership Group, the Central Michigan Sustainability Partners, which is the local organization that I'm part of, and then the Discovery Museum, Outreach to do some work with the kids. And we are likely going to have a few schools bringing children during the day too for this event. So I guess on the development side, if you're interested in learning more about contractors that are here, we're also inviting folks that work with construction to, if you want to make your house more energy efficiency. I will have a table for the city of Mount Pleasant with some pamphlets and information we created with our intern last year and with the building safety department. So yeah, please spread the word. And we have a flyer that I put it over there. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, any members of the Planning Commission have any questions? Okay, at this time, if there's no further business,
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
I know you're much.